I'm Matthew Woods, host of Leading Out of the Woods, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of My EdTech Life. I am excited to be here with you on this beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning here in South Texas. And I hope that wherever it is that you're joining us today, whether it's here in the US or abroad, I hope that you're having a wonderful day. And also, thank you for making us part of your day as well. We definitely appreciate all of your support. And from the bottom of my heart, I am always thankful for all the likes, shares, and follows. Thank you so much for connecting with us as well, shooting us DMs, and expressing your interest on being on the podcast. So thank you so much. As you know, our mission is to connect educators and creators one show at a time. And I am excited about today's show. There was definitely a lot of hype midweek, from a lot of my friends, obviously a lot of them from Cami. And this is just really exciting for me to have Nicole Rennie on the show today. And she will be sharing a lot of that Cami app magic. And of course, we will also dive into her education journey. As you know, everybody that is a guest on our show has an amazing story that can help all our educators and creator friends out there. So I'm really excited for Nicole to be here and share. Nicole, how are you on this beautiful morning here in South Texas, but hopefully a wonderful afternoon where you are in the world?
Hey, Fons, thank you so much. I like to say greetings, everyone. That's the special way that I always say hello. I'm coming to you from Cape Town, South Africa. That's right at the bottom of Africa. And I'm absolutely delighted to be a part of this really meaningful podcast. The more that I've listened to the shows, the more that I've gotten to know the meaning and purpose behind it, the more I respect this work. So it's a great honor to be here and chatting with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate those kind words. As you know, we definitely work hard just to amplify educator voices, creator voices, because, like I mentioned to you in the pre chat, every guest has an amazing story, and every guest can definitely share so much knowledge that can help our educators in the education landscape, or whether in the creator space. And like I always said, sometimes it's that one little thing that guest says that can just make a huge impact on so many people. So I'm really excited to hear your story. And we are already getting a lot of love in the comments. So thank you so much. We see Steve, who is joining us. Thank you so much, Steve. We
Hey,
see
Steve.
Sophie, who
Good
is
stuff.
joining us today. We see Sherry Fleischer. Thank you so much, Sherry, for
Welcome.
joining us as well. And we see my colleague. Here we go, Isaac.
Awesome.
How you doing? He is a great, great colleague that I've been working with over probably like now going on 2 years. So he's joining us here live as well. So thank you so much for all the love. And so, Nicole, for our audience members who are joining us live and watching this, or who will be catching this on the replay, who may not be familiar with your work yet, can you give us a little brief introduction before we get into that superhero origin story?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey as most started with teaching. I actually knew that I wanted to be a teacher from a very, very, very young age, and I followed that dream. But something very pivotal happened when I was quite little. So apparently, from the earliest moment of speaking, I would say I really would like to learn the violin. I really would like to learn the violin, and apparently, I was quite insistent on this. Although I don't know where I got it from, to be honest. And a pivotal moment happened where my mother eventually found a teacher at the University of Cape Town who was willing to teach little me, 5.5 years old, and she made that happen. And I started learning, and I worked really hard, and I became a violinist. And for me, that pivotal moment of being able to really sink into a dream and keep pressing in until that actually came to fruition. And I guess my parents planted the seed, that you can make things happen if you really try hard enough. And so that stayed with me in my journey towards becoming a teacher. And my teaching method, by the teacher at UCT was incredibly inspiring. So I learned something called the Kodai method, which is a very collaborative way to learn music. So rather than one-on-one lessons, you have group tuition where you are exposed to singing with solfa, and in group sessions, your ear is trained by more than just the music you're making. It's very much a unique experience of all the sounds and all the intervals that come together, and you train your ear in this collaborative way. And collaboration has stayed through my journey as something really, really important. But I think it stemmed right back to that learning the violin experience in this quite unique, really amazing pedagogical way called Kodai method.
Well, the way that you described it, I absolutely love the fact that you're not only learning the instrument, but you're learning just so much around that. And that collaboration piece is so important. And I like kind of like the what you said as far as learning the violin and learning an instrument. And one of the things that my colleague actually, who's joining us, Isaac, shared with me was an article, and that kind of changed my mindset as far as the tools that we use. I really don't like to call them really tools. I like to call them instruments in a way, just because a tool can be used for one quick thing and you put it away. And I give an analogy, like for example, if you need to hang a frame, you use a hammer and you use it that one time. So it's the tool for that. But for me, for ed tech, what it seems like is more of an instrument where I sometimes what happens is we just jump from tool to tool to tool to tool to tool. That can be overwhelming for teachers, it can be overwhelming for students. But if you treat that tool as an instrument and really dive in deep and see how far you can take it, sometimes you'd be pleasantly surprised that you're like, wow, this is really all I needed. And I didn't need 20 other tools or instruments to do that same thing and play that wonderful melody. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I would love to talk a little bit about that as we get further into the show, as far as so many tools and why I love Cami, because for me, it's my one stop shop that has pretty much everything that I need integrated on there. And many times we don't dive in deep enough. So I wanted to ask you, now that you kind of give us a little bit origin story, but let's talk a little bit more about now, since you already knew that you wanted to be an educator. Tell us about your journey when you finally, came into education. What was your experience like? Maybe that first day in the classroom and that classroom setting. So walk us through a little bit about that, and because I know that this will probably help inspire some future educators that might be listening to the show.
Thank you. I really hope so. So I was very fortunate to have a position in a quite a privileged school when as my first teaching position, and so I had every resource and I had every great teaching material that I might need. But at that point, which will age me, computers were not really part of the classroom practice. And I have become quite inspired by something my husband, who's always, bless him, supported me so much in my own professional journey. He had introduced me to Excel, which is going to date me a little. But at that point, that was novel. And at university, I studied music, but also 3 years of mathematics. I pushed to be able to have both avenues and be able to teach both. And I actually, in my classroom setting, wanted to take my students down to the computer lab, which was unheard of, and give them an experience, again, of not just telling them how something works, but letting them explore and experience how, if they change this variable in a function, it is now experienced as a graphical representation on the page or on the screen for the students. And so I became inspired right from that very first day, having this ability to have access to technology, that these students had that, but that in fact, many students didn't. And that stayed with me. So after, I think it was about 4 years, I actually left that amazing position and I went into ed tech in the sense of being a content author, because I was so keen to reach more than just those who already had a wonderful school with lots of resources. And I knew that there was a disparity where many students didn't have that. So I became a mathematics content author and I tried to create as much open source material as possible so that many people had access to being empowered to learn. And I knew that even students who didn't have a lot of high tech just from a phone would be able to have access to more than enough that would help their learning journey. So it was actually through lots of different authoring projects that I became familiar with several different tech platforms. And then, whilst doing that, I was raising my three beautiful children, who I also thank enormously for their support, and they're stepping up when mummy's really busy. They've grown into young, independent, wonderful children. So I'm really proud of them. And watching their journey in schools, and always, obviously, incredible respect for teachers and the work that they do, I would see and notice that a lot of teachers who even were extremely proficient at their craft in their classroom might be very uncomfortable with technology still. Because if it hadn't been a passion of theirs prior to coming into the classroom, or it hadn't been something they'd had experience with, they felt quite daunted at the idea of even implementing technology in the classroom. So that's when I specialized in ICT integration in education, so that I could actually handhold teachers that I knew had so much incredible pedagogical insight to give out in their classrooms, but didn't know quite how to purposefully infuse technology with that. And so, with lots of different edtech tools, I know, especially over COVID time, teachers, had a bit of an onslaught of this many tools thrown at them, and they needed to absorb everything and figure it out. But a lot of tools have a purpose that's quite unique, and then they need another tool for something else. Whereas when I discovered Cami, I thought, this is it. This is the all in one support that you need for any subject, for any device, for any grade, and it grows with your tech capacity. So even if you're starting off with very low tech base, you can still be empowered to do so much more with using Cami in that space.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with a lot of those things that you said. And one of the things that I want to highlight that I picked up from what you said is just uh, that how intentional you're using the tech. Sometimes it's like there, like you said, everything was thrown at us. So we need to be very purposeful with what we're using and not use tech for tech's sake. Oftentimes, you can still revert back to paper and pencil for certain things. And then, of course, moving on to the tech and enhance the learning with creating something that you can't normally do within your classroom and using the technology. So I want to ask you too, because I felt that same way. What I loved about my district is uh, at that time when everything shut down, my recommendations for the district is just keep Edpuzzle, keep Cami, of course, Google Classroom, and Screencastify. So those were our four apps that we kept. We decided to that's what we were gonna just save or send for everybody. They were deployed to every Chromebook and deployed to all teachers. And the reason that I love Cami is obviously because using it in the classroom back in 2016, with my students, saw the effectiveness of it. And of course, as we're doing everything virtual, we definitely needed something that what was happening is we were, making so many copies and thick packets that parents were driving by picking up packets weekly. I was like, why are we doing this when we have the technology? And then, of course, the Chromebooks now were one to one. However, at the time, because it's so difficult for many teachers to transition into tech, and then all of a sudden it was forced on them. Now that they've come back, we still see that little hesitancy. And I always, talk to my colleagues and say that many of it's kind of like that trauma. Like if I see a Chromebook, many teachers are like, no, 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 that's only COVID. That's it. We're back in the classroom. So
Mm.
I wanted to ask you, as far as the transition now back into the classroom, what would be some advice that you would give some educators that are still a little hesitant to embrace that technology, but also how can Cami help them to ease their transition?
Well, I'm glad to say there are many ways that Cami can help and support. One of the ways is that we do offer unlimited PD. So we're right there to help. If you have a specific educational goal, we will tailor that training for you. And there are supportive structures that are fairly new to Cami that really do support classroom usage of Cami. So we knew that Cami was really amazing in lockdown when you were remote teaching, but there are also massive classroom benefits now that perhaps you haven't had a look at. So do check out the camiapp.com What's New page. But some of those things are the ability to have a collaborative structure that is quite unique. So within collaborating, you can control your features. You can also have insights as to what's going on in the class. You have a very unique permission structure, so you don't have students derailing other people's contributions by deleting or editing things. But we have added the addition that a teacher has complete control in order to remove or edit something of somebody else's on the page that was asked for. You have that new structure. But one of the things that is blowing teachers' minds that you mustn't miss out on, that is really insightful for classroom practice and use of Cami, is the grade by page functionality. So never before could you open up all digital work in one screen and be able to see exactly what's going on. This allows teachers to have a whole class of devices going on, but be able to see overall insights of exactly what's happening on each and every page of the students, and also be able to give feed forward in meaningful, easy ways to encourage and to direct students so that they have the best chance of success with those learning outcomes. So really checking out grade by page is super important. That is a classroom functionality that's almost like having your own mobile device management system where you really can check on and give individual feedback, but have that overall insight.
Yes, excellent. And those are some of the things that I've seen that have come out, and it's just really exciting because it's getting more robust. But what I love about all of this, Nicole, is the fact that Cami listens to the users. They listen to educators. And one thing I wanted to share is there was a certain feature that I had seen, and then I even created a video and I sent it to Vanessa, and then I sent it to Steve, and then I said, look, I don't know who to send this to or what, but I know you do. And I was able to send it over. And the fact that Steve was like, hey man, like they're really listening to this feedback, certain features and so on. And then just to hear that, and then to see what's come out, in response. And I know that it wasn't just me that always asks for little things and here and there, but just what I saw come out is just something that makes it that much better, much more robust. And I think for teachers that are still hesitant, and even for new teachers, we can't dismiss that. Sometimes we think it's like, oh, these newer teachers, they're really into tech. Well, there's one thing about a difference between being in tech and then being on your phone and doing certain things and creating,
Yes.
but there's a difference between that tech and actual educational technology, how to implement it properly. So the lower the barrier of entry is, I think the greater acceptance for not only veteran teachers, but those new pre-service teachers that are coming in, and they're going to be excited and then a little overwhelmed at the time as well with new tech. So I've definitely loved
Yeah.
keeping track of all the new stuff that Cami is coming up with. So tell us a little bit more, maybe about some of the newer features. I know, like you mentioned some here, but what else maybe that our audience members can catch and say, hey, I definitely want to try this now. What are some of your favorites that have been released recently?
Um, I absolutely will chat about some favorites, but I just want to pick up on one thing that you said
Mhm.
first, and that it really struck a chord with me. And that is that, we did have this tech pushback. And I earnestly want to say that that comes from teachers' hearts because they saw a lot of damage being done by overuse of technology.
Mm.
But let's be careful about the discrepancy between technology that's really not good for children and technology that enhances learning. I think absolutely let's push back on the technologies that are addictive and not designed for children and derail children's self-esteem, etc. But no child's going to get addicted to Google Classroom or Cami. It is a supportive learning structure that we can freely give them without any risk of adrenal fatigue or any of the dangers of technology. So yes, let's tap into all of those new features and really support the learning. And some of what you can do with some of the newer features that I haven't spoken about is also come out of our community's feedback, and that is our Cami library. Please go to the Cami library regularly. We have new templates literally coming in every single day. And those templates you can open directly from Cami straight away, or you can just download if it's more useful for you to use it another way. It is totally free. And keep letting us know if there are other ways that you would find it useful to open up something that you frequently use in your district. It can be very personal, but we'd love to have that available for you in the Cami library. So that's also one of the newest features. We also have a lot of new accessibility features. So do make sure you understand that if you're teaching students who are learning different languages, we have many, many voice options. We have read aloud for on the page. We also have read aloud for the text box, text that students either type or voice type into their own native tongue. They can choose that voice pack now. There's so many options for how we can make that learning come to life for them. We also have added the ability to, which really helps with blending the idea of some work being done on paper and some being done digitally. We have that Cami camera. So if you open Add Media, your students are able to do the work on paper where that's appropriate and easier or whatever, but still submit it digitally. So make sure you are assigning Cami assignments, and the student can very easily take a photo with the Cami tool. It's one click and it's on the page for the teacher. And then the teacher can use all the functionality of grading in Cami with meaningful ways to give feedback that are so quick and easy, and also be able to share that feedback with the students directly into the learning management system.
Oh, I love that. And that kind of takes me back when I was using Cami in the classroom back in 2016, 2017. What would happen with me is I had three classes that would come in, and then of course we all know if you make copies of paper, that stack, by the end of the day is there at the corner of your desk. And as you finally kind of have some downtime and sit down to kind of decompress, and then you slightly glance over, that stack just becomes very ominous, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go through this and so on. So what I started doing is, of course, with all that, giving those digital worksheets per se, but the fact that the students were able to record, they were able to annotate, they were able to submit that to me, it was a lot easier, and it just really helped my workflow. And so one of the things that I love that you add to me, the value that Cami adds is just that teacher workflow. And like you said, the fact that they're able to take a snapshot, you don't have to worry about an ominous stack. You can sit on your computer, you can scroll, you can go ahead and do the grade by page. But one of the things that I love, and I want to share one of my favorites is, and of course, using it even on my own right now for my doctoral studies, Cami has been the game changer, the lifesaver, the one and all tool that I need. But for
Yay.
my students being able to go through a worksheet but record their voice and get their ideas and thoughts, and how have them verbalize, and then of course they're practicing proper academic language, language acquisition, and what I love is that now it becomes a learning artifact as well. You have captured that moment, and what I loved about it is I love to capture the moments from the beginning of the year to the end of the year and see that growth in my students, and then I'm able to listen, I'm able to hear maybe some misconceptions and be able to fix that right away, being able to come back and then just give them that positive feedback and reinforcement that they need. And so for me, Cami really does it all. And now with all these new additional features, it's like I can really just live within that space and I would be fine. So those are some of the things that I love there. So thank you so much for always listening to feedback, for all the things that you release, for all the Cami heroes that are out there sharing all
Absolutely,
on
they're
Cami.
amazing.
And so, yeah, I mean, we've got Sophie and Steve that are here also joining us, and they are amazing too, as well. The work that they're doing, with just schools everywhere, students, and the impact has just been amazing. So, thank you for all of that. But I want to
Yeah,
kind of just,
and I get to work with the most incredible team. I'm so grateful, and it's a company culture where everyone is valued. Even little me at the bottom of Africa, I've really grown to love the incredible team that I'm working with,
Mhm.
and they do really earnestly want to help and support teachers. So that's why the tools come out really on point, because they're listening to those teacher feedbacks.
Absolutely. Well, now I want to ask a question here because I found this something very interesting in your bio that you sent.
Yes,
As a Cami mom. So
yes.
tell me about your experience there, being a Cami mom. So share that with our audience because I would love to hear some of that.
Yeah, well, I have three children at different ages of and stages in school. My youngest is 8, my middle child is 14, and my eldest is 16, going on 17, terrifyingly. And they're all using Cami in their schoolwork, and they're able to actually experience the benefits of the tools. And so, I do often get my own children to test out things and tell me what makes things easier, what makes things harder, and that also helps us to get feedback. So being able to look through three lenses, the Cami coach, the Cami mom, and the Cami trainer, it really does help when I'm supporting teachers. And I feel incredibly blessed to be able to help teachers all over the world every single day with a tool that I know changes their lives. I've seen the tool in action in classrooms, and I've seen, one of the examples you brought up just now about the way you can change things, even from just an ordinary class list. if you open that into Cami, it becomes a dynamic space that could be a reading fluency chart where you can track the progress of your students reading. And it really is important for us, especially because we are trying to accommodate perhaps learning losses. It's important for us to track and to show efficacy of the mediums that we're using to assist students in the classroom. So yeah, I love that you've brought up some of my favorite tools too.
Yes, absolutely. And again, there's such game changers. Also, the fact that the students can record themselves. I mean, these are so many things that oftentimes really get overlooked because it's like, oh, well, here's just for annotation and you highlight and markup. But man, and that's what I mean. Like for me, Cami is a great example of an instrument that if you go through the basics, you can learn one, two, or three chords, and you can play a melody, like you mentioned, kind of that intro where if it's just markup, highlight, and maybe underline. But then all of a sudden the teacher discovers, of course, the text to speech, and then discovers the voice notes or discovers, and then you can just go on and on and on. And before you know it, this melody is just something that's beautiful in the classroom, and the students are all in sync. And it's amazing. It's almost like you become that composer, and your students are your beautiful orchestra, and everything just gels. And that's the way I really feel about what Cami can do. And because I've seen it within my classroom setting, and I've seen it, even currently right now with the use that we have for our teachers, and of course even myself using it as a student currently as well. And so it's really amazing. So I want to kind of change the conversation here a little bit, and it's still talking about Cami, but I want to ask you, you know, how does Cami address the need for future skills for students to prepare them for the future of the workforce?
So that's a really great question. I think part of that has to do with the fact that it's really a unique collaborative space. There's a lot of buzz in the edtech world about collaboration being really, really important. But there's a quite a big distinction between just being in the space together and collaborating. So it's not the same just to have everyone on a digital space
Mm.
as it is to have meaningful collaboration. I think if one wants to meaningfully collaborate, then it's about sharing more, seeing more, experiencing more, understanding different perspectives, gaining empathy, being able to be a good communicator. And these are difficult skills to model even in person. And now the children in our classrooms have not necessarily spent time becoming a great digital communicator. They may be on various social media platforms. That is not teaching them that. But Cami gives a structure that really allows teachers to model great communication skills and great collaborative skills because of the ways there are several meaningful feedback options. So, we've got a text feed comment, we've got audio comment, screen capture comment, video comment. We also have that structure where it's easy to open up something and get everyone on the page. So, one of the new features, if you're not already using it, is open up something and collaborate every day in your classrooms. Nurture habitual collaboration by just opening up a library template and then clicking on the share button. And now we have a new feature that's a QR code. So as your students walk into the classroom or even in the staff room, as your teachers walk into the staff room, scan that QR code and get everyone on the page and begin to share your ideas and see different perspectives. And that's where a richer learning experience happens. So I'm glad that it is a space that supports that so well.
I
And
absolutely.
the other
Oh,
feature that I think is we haven't chatted about yet that's useful in that space is also the annotation summary. So the teachers have a way to save really great feedback. So you can develop those critical thoughts that you want to share with students about collaborating, and you can put those on the page where needed without having to recreate that work. So save those frequently used formulae or feedbacks or just one solution to a problem that went boom for a lot of students so that you don't have to repeat that work. You can just go ahead and pop it on everyone's page who needs it.
yes, I absolutely love everything that you said. And I'm so sorry because I got really excited at that point. But man, you just shared so many great things and so many wonderful ideas how to easily implement, and just again, feeling comfortable with the technology. But again, you're absolutely right. What you mentioned is we can be together in a space, but it doesn't mean that we're all collaborating. We're just kind of there together. The sharing of ideas is very important. Hearing different people's perspectives is so important. And that's one of the reasons that I love to do a show like this, to get, leaders such as yourself and everybody else that's been on the show. And then the more that will come later on, but just to share those things to help inspire, because everything actually, like, I'm getting inspired with everything that we're covering, because it's a lot of stuff that I know resonates with me as a user. I would consider myself a power user myself, but with what it can do for the classrooms and the transformation that can occur, the collaborative skills, obviously the digital skills that are needed for the future of work and the future of learning as well. Because, and talking about future of learning, like even university, all of that can definitely help, with implementing Cami. And so
Mm.
I absolutely love that. Now, Nicole, I want to ask you a little bit, maybe if you can explain to us how, for yourself, if you're going to a school or you're helping a teacher, talking a little bit about ways to help support differentiated instruction with Cami.
Yeah, so there are a number of ways that we can differentiate learning in Cami. And I think the ability to personalize the instruction is made easier through the tools that we have. So you can share out the same assignment, but for some students, you can actually control the features they're allowed to have. So if one particular student is really needing more accessibility features, maybe you don't know, but on anything you share from Cami, whether you're sharing that out as an immediate link or you're sharing it out through your LMS as a Cami assignment, you have the ability to control the features. So, for a group of students who may need more accessibility features to work with, they may need the read aloud tool, they may need the dictionary tool, may need to be able to voice type on the page. You can allow those features. And for other students who potentially don't need that or need additional questions on the page, you can modify so easily in Cami as well. Give extra extension work in Cami by just using that same resource. You don't have to recreate from the start, but you can then add to that, not only with adding an additional page, which we have many new ways to add pages, even with background color changes now, but also in terms of just being able to change a question on the page. It will still look like the same worksheet. It's important for it to have the same sort of frame for each of the students so we don't derail anyone's self-esteem, but it's easy to modify in Cami. And so I think that also makes the teacher role, when we're trying to save them time, that much smoother.
Yes, no, I agree with you, and that's one of the things that, and I'm gonna definitely age myself on this, but back when I first started, again, learning of course, what IEPs are and 504s are and so on, and learning that process and having to, they tell me it's like, hey, you're gonna have to create two tests, you're gonna have to do this and so on. So having to go and do that manually and trying to still keep the same framework. So of course, like you said, so no one student is singled out and so on, very difficult at that time because it was time consuming. You had to do a couple more moves, and here, with everything just being on one screen, and like you mentioned, the ability to add a different page, to change questions, to really either add an extension or maybe just remove an answer. Instead of four multiple choice questions, it will only be three, and so on. It just makes it that much easier of a tool, and you're just in one place one time and not having to do what I used to do, where I would create one copy and then I would have to go in and white out or change everything and then make another copy for
The
that
best.
and do those tests. Yes. So I was like, wow, so it's great to see technology just take away some of those things to help give teachers back that time. And that's one of my goals all the time in helping. And obviously, with some of the tech that we use, is I would love to give teachers time back. And I always say, if I can give you 5 minutes back or maybe 10 minutes in your day, and even if it's just to sit there with the lights off on your desk and just take a deep breath and sigh, then it's definitely worth, that return on investment with those apps. But just to make sure also that the instruction has been taken to a different level and that learning experience is great for the student, that's also wonderful. And I love that we can do that through this app. So thank you so much for that and sharing that. So that's amazing. And obviously, for new teachers that would be coming in, this is definitely going to be something valuable as they learn how to differentiate that instruction, being able to use a tool like this that can help streamline that. So that's wonderful. Well, Nicole, I mean, this has just been an amazing conversation. It has been wonderful. I thank you so much for your time, your passion. And, but before we go and before we wrap up, I definitely just want to ask you, uh, right now, your perspective. I want to ask you for yourself where you see, working with Cami and then working with teachers all around the world. Where do you see, the future of ed tech going, or tech implementation within the, school setting? What are your thoughts and your perspectives on that?
Well, I think that one of the most topical things right now is, of course, the AI influence, and how we incorporate AI or we don't incorporate AI in classroom spaces. And I see the future very much is it is necessary for us to include AI, but also to really train our students, and model for our students great ways for them to communicate with AI and to iterate and refine things with AI. But once again, Cami helps in the sense that we do want to be assured that children have the correct boundaries in place. So utter freedom, and just copying and pasting work that they've just gotten from some kind of AI support, that is a big challenge. But one of the things in Cami that you are supported with is the ability to even turn off copy and paste. And so, for instance, my son was working on an assignment the other day, and he was using a chat AI support to refine his use of adjectives. It was in a different language. Here in South Africa, we learn in English and Afrikaans. And he was able to learn a lot of Afrikaans, but do his own work. So he could refine sentences and check grammar, a word order, etc., etc. But they were his sentences, and there was no copy and paste because copy and paste is disabled. But he was able to learn a lot through being able to give commands and change and reflect. And also, it's important for us to teach our students to critique what it is that they get out of any technology, and AI support, and understand that they need to take that not necessarily as the perfect solution, but use that in order to refine their own unique work.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. It's just, you know, I it's it's either, you're on one side or you're on the other, and there are very few people that are in the middle that kinda just try and reconcile, both sides, because obviously, with AI, we wanna make sure we protect data privacy, we protect student information,
Everything.
but on the other side, we definitely see that AI is here. It's not going to go anywhere. I think the scary part though for teachers, and I know I've mentioned this and it seems to be something that has been said in a couple of shows too as well, is just that technology now is front facing, and it is right in front of us where we're seeing it, where teachers didn't realize that some of the platforms that they use in their classrooms that create a path for a student use certain algorithms and use certain artificial intelligence to help the students close that gap or master and then move them up. And so they never had to think about it because they really didn't see it. It was there. It was just like, oh, it's the platform. But now that that has come out and been front facing, and what we're able to see that can be done with it has been something that has been amazing. And I think that we definitely, as an education landscape or education leaders, we definitely need to have those conversations, be able to train our teachers, make them feel comfortable with the tech. And just, one of the things I always tell teachers is you control the tech doesn't control you.
Yeah.
So you are, the master of your content. So it's only going to give you back what you put into it. So the better input, the better output, and you can definitely use it to help save you time and certain things, menial tasks, but also for students, the ability to learn this technology that's going to be here and prepare them for future of work, prompt engineering, of course, all of those things that are coming. I mean, it's something that is amazing. So thank you so much for your insight. And
Pleasure. The future of education, I must just say, is also very, very important for us to place more value on teachers.
yes,
And we're talking a lot about technology, But I think one of the things I'd like to see more focus on is the value of teachers in the future of education. So, whilst we want to support them with technology, we also want to empower teachers and value teachers more. I think we definitely get a sense of the fact that teachers have so much work and so much pressure, and we need to make sure that technologies don't add stress to teachers, but that support their unique classroom magic that they bring.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you on that. So thank you so much for your thoughts on that. I love it. And so, Nicole, next question for you that I want to ask is, and I'm curious, just because you have just this wonderful personality. So, my question to you is if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
So, an interesting question. I'm actually going to show you what it would say. It's very simple, but it would be yellow. It's a personal story, and I think because I respect the work you're doing, I'm going to just open up and share my personal story. Um, I went through a challenge in my life. I really strongly believe there is one God, King of the universe, who loves us all. I think we all have an opportunity to have a unique relationship with God, and so that can come in many shapes or forms. But I went through a challenge several years ago where I was diagnosed with an autoimmune illness, and so I gave myself this billboard every single day, and the MYMJ stands for more yellow, more Jesus, more joy. And for me, I used that mantra because when this autoimmune illness was at its worst, it came on very aggressively and it took a number of years to get it under control. It was actually very difficult to get up in the morning. And so I used this because I've always loved yellow. And so I actually put on yellow every day and it frames my mind. I put on Jesus's love for me and I try and share that love out with everyone that I interact with in the day. And that gives me joy. So my billboard would say more yellow, more Jesus, more joy. So I hope that speaks to someone who's
Yes.
listening. I really think if you live your life with God and with people who are building you up, you're able to build others up. So I thank all the friends and colleagues who have built me up in my journey in education. And I encourage us to continue in the EdTech space to build up our teachers.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate it, sharing that, personal story. It's very touching, and especially to share it here with people that, this is going out all over, the internet and the interwebs and everywhere. But the fact that you shared it here on this show, really, thank you so much. Like I said, for your comment as far as respecting what I do here. But thank you for that, because I absolutely is something that for me is very important for my day to day as well, is my relationship with God. And so I love to see that and I love to hear that. And, I think that's why really I just have this heart of servitude. And my heart really is for people just to come on the show and share their stories, because I want to learn from them and I want to see things from different perspectives and see how they can be helpful. Just like you sharing your story, I guarantee you that somebody out there is listening and or will be listening to this episode at that perfect time that God has set for them and hear your story, and just to be able to be inspired by it, and again the impact that it can make. So thank you so much for sharing. Nicole, last question. And this question is, let's say that all of a sudden Nicole Rennie is going to start a podcast. So we'll say that maybe we'll call it the Cami Mom podcast. How about that? And let's say I was your first guest on your show. What might be one question you'd like to ask me?
Well, I think what I'd like to ask you, I've shared a little story from my childhood, and shared teachers and influences in my life. Have you got a childhood classroom moment or a childhood moment that wasn't in the classroom, but when you were young, that really defined something for you that stayed with you in your life?
Yes. And as soon as you said that, it always comes to mind. And so, okay. So when I first came into teaching, really, I came in from a marketing background and I had no clue what to do in the classroom other than the math skills, and then using those relatable marketing skills to personalize learning and doing all those things. I often tell people I was wearing the cool band shirt before it was even cool, because I was doing personalized learning way before it became a buzzword. But again, that's just the nature of marketing and the way it goes. But what I started seeing is I'm working with students, and in my demographic area, it's a lot of Spanish speaking, families. The students are bilingual, or emergent bilinguals, and then the parents only spoke Spanish.
Mm,
And it was very difficult for a lot of teachers to communicate with the parents. And what it did is it kind of just flipped a switch on me that I always made it a point to make those connections with parents because of an important childhood memory that always comes back to mind when I'm working with parents. And what I remember is growing up here, I didn't learn English until I was in second grade. So all through kinder and first, I was struggling just learning the language, watching a lot of TV, a lot of Price is Right, a lot of, PBS shows and so on. And so I remember distinctly that one of my homework assignments one day is like the teacher would give us a reading log. And so I would have to read a book. But the thing was, is that you had to read to your parents. So I would remember when coming home and telling my parents, I need to read to you. And obviously, I was talking to them in Spanish.
mm,
Um, I told them they would sit there in front of me, and I would be there reading, and I can just see their eyes just looking at me, but they didn't know what I was saying. They didn't know how I could help. And so from that moment on, it was just something that has really made an impact in my life, that I always make it a point to try and communicate to parents in their language, making them feel comfortable. And if I don't know their language, I'll find a translator, because I know how hard it could be for a parent to want to help their child, but can't because we haven't done enough to put
mm.
something down on paper in their language or use some sort of tech to be able to have that communication. So that for me is that childhood story, and that is why I advocate for a lot of this kind of service where we're able to bring in our learning community and include our parents no matter what language they may be speaking, and
Mm.
give them their information and help them see that we are caring for their child, and address their concerns and make them feel part of the learning as well. So yeah, that's my story, and that is my childhood moment that sticks with me, and it's still very
Thank you for
alive.
that incredible vulnerability, and
Yeah.
for that empathy that you share, and that you're reminding us of the importance of that real communication that's so key for parents to be able to support their children. They have to be able to understand. So being able to speak to them and communicate with them in their language is just so empowering, and really builds the relationship then of support for homework time and the school journey in general between parents and children. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That was a great question. Look at that. The Cami Mom podcast definitely is, yeah, you definitely need to do something like that. Wonderful. Well, Nicole, honestly, it has been an honor. It has been a pleasure to have you here. I thank you so much. Yeah, and this is the amazing thing, that although we are continents apart and many hours apart, the fact that we're able to meet here through the use of tech and share your story and amplify your voice, amplify the work that you're doing, not only the work that you're doing with Cami, but just opening up your heart to everybody. I know it's something that may not be very easy for many to do, but you did it so well and in such an inspirational way. So thank you. This episode
Let's move on.
definitely this episode definitely has filled my bucket. And so thank you so much for this. And I know that our audience members are definitely going to gain so much from this. But before I wrap up, Nicole, can you tell our audience members how it is that they may be able to connect with you on socials?
Yeah, of course. You're welcome to connect with me on socials at Nicole Rennie, ZA. So the ZA is for South Africa, the code for South Africa. So at Nicole Rennie, ZA. And teachers who are wanting to book training are welcome to just go to calendly.com/Nicole Cami, and you can book a training anytime. I'm really excited to always share as much as I can to support you and your classroom magic.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Nicole. And for all our audience members that joined us, Melissa, thank you. Sophie, we had Isaac. Thank you so much. Sherry, we had Steve. Thank you so much for joining us live in the chat. And for all our audience members that were or will catch this episode at a later time or rewatch it or listen to the podcast, thank you as always from the bottom of my heart for all of your continual support. This is why we do what we do, to just bring you some passionate individuals to share their stories that can help inspire you, no matter where you are in your education career, whether you're just starting off or whether you're a veteran teacher. We hope that our content helps just inspire you. And please make sure that you visit our website for a more amazing episodes such as this. You can go visit us at myedtech.life, myedtech.life, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 191 wonderful episodes with wonderful educators and creators that you can learn from. You can take some of those knowledge nuggets, sprinkle them on to what you are already doing great. And if you'd love to contribute to our mission, please make sure you stop by our store there on our website, where we've got some great caps, some great shirts. And as you know, all of that continues to go back into the show.
Already bought a yellow top. I can't wait to wear that next time I see you.
There you go. Well, I'm excited about that. And as you know, all of that goes back to our mission of connecting educators and creators one show at a time. So thank you so much as always. And my friends, don't forget, until next time, stay techie.